Hi, this is Steph with Belladonna Dyes, and today we're going to make a centerfold. For this project, I'm going to start by centering the shirt. And what I mean by centering the shirt is I'm going to tuck one sleeve inside the other sleeve. So I'm starting by marking out my center lines, and then I'm going to tuck one sleeve inside the other sleeve and line up all the seams along the underarm and along the shoulder. Then I'm going to find those marks that I made and give them a little pinch and shake the shirt. I'm going to lay it flat down on the table and smooth out all the wrinkles, and then it's usually the back of the shirt flat against the table, and then I'm going to fold the top of the shirt over it and line everything up and smooth out all the wrinkles, and that's centering a shirt. Now you can tell that that is the back of the shirt flat against the table because you can see the tag. So I'm smoothing out the wrinkles, and now I'm going to bring the front of the shirt over top of the back of the shirt. And why I'm doing this is because I'm going to create symmetry. So if I was to just fold it directly in half, there would be saturation issues. So if you were looking at the shirt head on, half of your shirt would have lighter saturation and half of the shirt would have darker saturation. By doing this method, one side will have the darker saturation and the other side will have the lighter saturation, just depending upon, how you place your dye. It's hard to explain, but after you've been tie-dyeing for a while, you'll understand. Alright, that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is mark out my pattern with my washable marker and some kite string. But first I figure out where I want the center of the pattern to go. So I usually come down about 2 inches from the underarm. You don't want it to be too high up on your chest, and you also don't want it to be too far down right on top of the belly button. Find a happy medium. And then once I have my pattern drawn on, I'm going to pleat along this line, making those lines as straight as possible. And I would say these pleats are about a 1/2 inch tall. So I put the rubber band on there just to hold the first line in place. Now these pleats down here at the end, they're very small, and I'm not very good at making the little pleats. I just need more practice. If you had some tweezers or some type of a tool, it'd be a good time to use it. And I recorded this some time ago. Jen has since sent me a tool. If you guys watched the unboxing, I thought maybe it was a nail file. What they're actually for is for tucking down the pleats. And like right now would be a good time to have that tool. I think it'd really help me out. But just work on your pleats, doing the best that you can. And ultimately they're just going to like run themselves out, and you just really can't make as many pleats anymore. Now what you just saw me do there was try to secure it by using the tiny baby hair rubber band. And it's too small. It was completely squishing and making the shirt buckle. You don't want that. So I'm going to fix the pleats, and I'm going to secure this project by using kite string. Now if you don't have kite string, you can use rubber bands, but you want to make sure to use rubber bands that are not going to squish your project and make it buckle. Once you get down to the end, you just want to work your way back to where you started from. And what I like to do is sort of like go diagonally from line to line and pick up any pleats that might be sort of sticking out. In the front part, it doesn't really happen so much, but back here on the back end where there's like all the hems and seams and everything, you get a lot of little straggling pieces, so whatever. Now you just want to continue pleating your shirt, doing the best that you can. These are getting taller, so I'll go as far as I can, trying to keep the pleats all the same height, because you want to have good even saturation. You don't want to have tall pleats where it's sloping forward. It gets pretty thick in some areas, so I have to start adding secondary pleats to shorten the pleats. And if you just watch, you'll see what I mean. Again, trying to keep all the pleats the same height, that's the goal. So right here is where I'm making those secondary pleats. I just made one right there. It really does help with saturation and keeping the pleats more uniform. All right, almost done. You can see why I like using rubber bands. This is so tedious, and I just don't enjoy this part of the process. I know a lot of people do enjoy tying, and I think if I could sit and watch television while I was doing it, maybe I would enjoy it more. I could like listen to one of my favorite shows. But you know what? There is nothing on TV right now. There is just like nothing. I'm so bored. I've been watching this show on Netflix, and it's called Bloodline, and it's like 5 or 6 years old. I mean, that's how desperate I am. It's a pretty good show though. Now that I've made it back to the beginning, I'm just going to secure it by tying a simple double knot. And then I'm going to try to get the rubber band out of there, but it's all tied up in the string. So I decided just to leave it because I am just too frugal to cut the rubber band. It's not going to cause any issue, so just forget about it. And I'm going to save it's probably not even worth a penny because I cherish my rubber bands, you guys. And now I'm marking out my pattern, and I'm going every 2 inches. And now I'm just going to zigzag back and forth in between these 2-inch lines I drew on. And I should mention that these are washable markers, and they're Crazy Art brand, and I get them from Walmart. You could also use Crayola, but make sure they're washable markers. I made the mistake of getting a package that wasn't washable, and thank goodness the dye covered them, but oh, I was so worried about it. So yeah, washable markers. Now it's time for the fun part. We get to add the dye. So I decided to do the WigWag pattern on this shirt. And obviously I'm applying it by using dye bottles. I have a tutorial on how I mix up the dye in the bottles with soda ash. It is, let me see if I can remember. It's 1/4 cup of soda ash to 2 teaspoons of dye. And I have since added just a little more dye. I felt like I wasn't getting enough saturation with the ice dyeing. The dye in the bottles is actually for hot water irrigation. And Greg over at Goyo's Garden and Tie-Dye loves using these dye bottles, and he does a lot of hot water irrigation, you guys, and creates some really fun pieces. So go over and check out his channel, and please subscribe. He's growing his channel, and he could use a few extra subscribers. But you can see the dye bottles in action a lot more than you're ever going to see on my channel. And I will try to remember to put the link for my mixing tutorial down below in the description box. And if I forget, somebody please remind me so that I can link it. Just because it's going to be easier for you to watch it than have me completely explain it. But I will tell you, it certainly does making precision dye placement so much easier. So I'm just whipping through the dye placement on this much faster than I am when I do liquid dye. And many of you saw the last WigWag attempt that I did and all of that dye that wicked up over the kite string. So I thought, you know, what the heck, I have not tried doing one with icedye, and so I'm just going to give it a try and see what happens. So we're gonna find out. Next, you want to build yourself some type of an ice barrier, and for this project I'm using the silicone cake molds that I got from Amazon, and I do have links for them down below in the description box along with everything else that I use for tie-dye, so go ahead and check that out. Now I could have put the ice barrier on before I added the dye, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to get the dye all the way on the sides of the shirt. Sometimes I don't get the dye on the sides because I can't see it with the ice barrier on there. So that's what I was thinking. And then I'm just going to use clothespins to secure the cake molds. That way the ice doesn't just fall right off of it and go down into the tote. I'm trying to be really careful and not go too fast and bump the project too much. I don't want to knock the dye all over the place. Now I should also mention the setup. So what I have here is one of those totes that's the type that you can slide under your bed. I think it's for like wrapping paper. And then I have a closet made rack, and I had to cut a little bit off the side, and I used, what are those, bolt cutters. So just cut a little bit off. and then I'm using empty dye jars to prop it up off the bottom of the tote. That way the ice can melt and it can drip through so it's not sitting in the muck. For the ice cubes, I'm using good old-fashioned ice cubes, and I got the trays from the dollar store. And the reason I decided to go with these, because I usually use my Frigidaire little nugget ice, I thought that I would have more control and not knock the dye everywhere, hopefully keeping that WigWag zigzag pattern on there. So I'm just going really slow and adding the ice cubes methodically. And then I'm going to cover over top of it with a layer of my nugget ice, just to make sure that all of the dye is covered. It was getting late and time for me to go to bed, so I decided just to go ahead and add a second layer of ice. I usually do a second layer of ice anyways, so I just figured this way it can do its thing overnight while I'm sleeping. And then I came back and I checked it in the morning, and it had really good saturation on the back and down inside the pleats, except for the robin's egg blue. And robin's egg blue has a tendency to just disappear during the ice dyeing process. So I decided I would hit it with some liquid dye, and hopefully that will help. Next, I'm going to put the lid on the tote, and it's recommended that you let it batch for 24 hours after the ice melts. Now, my dye room is really cold. As you can see, it's only 64 degrees in there. So I take my projects into the house and I wrap them in an electric blanket. And I like to let my projects batch for 48 hours. This shirt ended up batching for almost 3 days. I just couldn't get to it, but that's okay. After 48 hours, the chemical reaction between the soda ash and the Procyon dye stops, so it doesn't really matter. You just don't want your project to dry out. That's the only thing. So now it's time for the rinse out, and you want to start by using cold water to rinse away any soda ash that might still be reacting within the fabric, and then increase your water up to hot and rinse until the water runs pretty much clear. From here, I take it to the washing machine, and I do however many hot water cycles it takes using Kirillon. And Kirillon is a professional textile detergent that I get from Dharma Trading Company. I usually do about 2 hot water cycles. Then I do a final and third hot water cycle using Millsoft. And Millsoft is a professional fabric softener that I also get from Dharma. And then I'll throw it in the dryer and I'll iron it, and we'll come back and we'll see the results. Well, here it is, guys. Here's our centerfold ice dye after it's been washed and dried, and let me tell you what's going on. So the shirt on the left is on my dye table, which is too small for a 2XL. So I took it to the kitchen floor, and that's the shirt that's on the right, and the color is different. The shirt actually looks more like what's on my dye table. I think I'm gonna have to get like a big board or something so I can set it on my table and then take pictures with my ring light, because the color is more true. The kitchen floor is under fluorescent light, and it makes the colors look really good, but it's not 100% what it actually looks like. So as far as it being a WigWag, I would say not really. The ice dye just gives it a totally different effect, and also the saturation is just not there for a WigWag. It's really important to have the good saturation because you can see the zigzag pattern on a WigWag. Overall though, I think the shirt is really pretty. I definitely would do this again. And using the dye bottles, it was really easy to apply the dye. You know, maybe I should do one with the hot water irrigation. That'll make a cool tutorial. So overall though, I'm really happy with the shirt. I love the colors. I think it's pretty. You know, I'm happy with it. So what do you guys think? Please leave me some comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, leave a thumbs up, and click the bell and set it to all. That way you get notified of future uploads. And remember, have fun tie-dyeing.